Earth as a planet, which was formed how many million years ago? 4,600 million years ago. Okay, you have to remember this. And when did the star and other planets form? Big Bang Theory. Obviously, much behind us, around 5,500 years ago. Big Bang Theory, right? So 5,500 million years ago. Okay, we have, if we have to trace the history of Earth formation. Okay, and it had 4 stages in its formation. Like it was very, the pressure was so high, the gas was surrounding it, it had to condense and it had to form its core, crust, mantle, all the layers had to be formed, and it had 4 stages in its formation. It was classified as primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. And if we have to see much stages in between them, you'll see much different stages. And in the quaternary phase are part of interest. So, ma'am, you are a history teacher. Why not are you teaching all the stages of Earth as well? So, I will let us focus on human history. Rest of the history we will read in other subjects. So, quaternary part we will be seeing classification into 2 segregations. The first one is Pleistocene epoch, Pleistocene era, and the Holocene era. Okay, so epoch or era. So Pleistocene, this is around from 2nd million BC, that is around 2 million years ago to almost 12,000 years, that is 12,000 BC vargu, 12,000 years alla, 12,000 plus 2,021 years and add madkodi, that will be the present number of years. So yesterday I had told you HE, remember? HE ano term use madidde, apart from BC and AD, there is a term called HE. Remember? Then I told you that Holocene epoch na representative agi, they use the term HE. Nyapka idea? Okay. You say yes, I believe. Okay. So Pleistocene andre, it is Ice Age period where the climate was harsh, the sustenance of flora or fauna was in a different way. They had adapted for that particular environment. And in Holocene, that is post Ice Age, it was warmer. Okay, the diversity actually increased in this, the warm climate. In this, it is defined from the 12,000 BC to the present day. Okay, so this is wherein the stages, the time period or classification is done in these terms. Okay, Pleistocene epoch and Holocene, and in this Holocene, that is 12,000 BC to now. Neolithic, almost Mesolithic to Neolithic place and ನಾವು Holocene epoch ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ to the present day. So you would have heard this term Anthropocene epoch ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದಿರಾ? Anthropocene era, Anthropocene epoch ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದಿರಾ? So this is where the evolution of human has become so rapid. The technology, the scientific influence, all these things is seen in Holocene epoch, especially from the last 10 to 5,000 years. ಏನಾಗಿದೆ, the developments have become very rapid, very quick, and it is the deciding factor. Who is the one animal, one species who is defining all these changes is human related changes. So that is Anthropocene, human related. So entire epoch is defined by one species. Okay, so this is seen in the formation of Earth, the 4 stages, the Pleistocene, Holocene, and then we see, so Earth, when it was formed around 4,600 million years ago, andre, when was a life formed on Earth? Primitive life, cell? Around 3,500 million years ago. It is written here, 3,500 million years ago. Okay, so the first primitive life which breathed carbon dioxide and which survived on a cell division on basic this thing, and then we see the complex organisms which evolved. Okay, I think if you have chose PCMB in your +1 +2, you would have learned all these things. Okay, so 3,500 million years ago, how did the chemistry, the broth, it was called as a broth, in that broth the one tiny reaction change had created a life. Okay, chemical reaction change. So this happened in around 3,500 million years ago. So the complex structure like human had to evolve from a single structure, single cell structure. So when did this happen? When was this manga or ape occur? So homonoid annantaddu, the beginning was from hominoid. Hominoid was the basic ape. Namma tata muttata was an ape. And this ape who had a much better brain structure compared to the ape, a chimpanzee or gorilla or any other forefathers. So this actually happened in around 6 million years ago. Okay, around 6 million years ago. What were the differences between these apes? Okay, there were different names which was given to it. See this Australopithecus. Name is fancy, right? Australopithecus. Okay, this person was found in Australia, so the name Australopithecus. He was seen around some 5 million years ago. So he had a very small brain, putani brain. You know, how is your bike's caliber is determined? CC, right? So what is your bike CC, sir? Okay, so 250cc. Ma'am, if you have a scooty, what is its CC? So, what is the CC? CC. What is CC? Cubic centimeters, right? So, how much space or how big is the engine? What is the engine capacity? Cubic centimeter. Similarly, the engine that drives this human body is our brain. The difference in the structure of brain created the differences. So, Australopithecus, he had a small brain. What was his brain capacity? His brain capacity was 400 cc. And Homo habilis, his brain was a little bigger. His capacity was 700 cc. And Homo erectus, his capacity was 800 cc. So when you dig a grave, you know, when you see somebody's brain and you get to know the brain is smaller, then you shouldn't call him an ape. Okay? So the present day human capacity is around some 1200 to 1800. So Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, then comes our Homo sapiens. So brain capacity was around 1800 to 1200 cc. So differ agate. The aspirants of IAS might have a different CC, or brain holding capacity, thinking capacity. So yeah, this Homo sapiens appeared around 1,15,000 years ago. Okay, which had a bigger brain capacity defining. And in India, especially, if we have to, these people were digging. Yesterday I talked about vertical digging and horizontal digging and where we find the material remainings, right? So they were digging something in India as well. And they found out, how bored the anthropologist or the person who was digging, he has given this as Ramapithecus and Shivapithecus. So these were the apes, okay, who were, actually living in and around some 3 million years ago. Okay, these were the bones. Okay, and these were proto-humans, hominoids. Okay, so these is the trace origin from Manganinda Manava or from ape to human. So there are multiple fancy names. You need not remember all these things. But what you have to know is that in around 6 million years ago, the first proto-human developed, and we had, depending upon the brain capacity, okay, we classify into different terms, and we also, observe these kind of, race. Okay, Homo sapien, we belong to hominoid group, family. Okay, this is our species, the present day Homo sapiens. Okay, only with the betterment of the thinking capability, the change wherein we were able to think and act, this was the basic structural change. Okay, biological change led to the thought process change as well, which changed the lifestyle also. Okay, so these are the different types of human stages evolution. The next thing that we will see, the classification of Paleolithic is done in 3 different categories. It is early or lower, middle Paleolithic, and upper Paleolithic. You might get confused with which time to which time was it, like from which million years or how many lakh years was it. So you have to just remember it in a general sense that early or lower Paleolithic. What is lithic? The word stone, okay, Stone Age. So when the proto-human had evolved into Homo sapien, he had started using stone as tools to do his daily activities. What were his activities? He was a hunter, he was a gatherer. So he had to gather all his eatables. So in order to do that, to hunt, to gather, he used to make use of tools. Okay, and there are certain terms which are repeated. Factories. Have you heard of this? So, stone making factories. What does it mean, factory, in terms of this? Where they're having this organizational structure wherein boss was sitting, you do this, you do this. No. Factory ka matlab, a place wherein more number of such tools was seen together. Okay. So, the source had so many such tools, evacuated, or, in that place, which we name it as factory. Okay. So in the early or lower Paleolithic age, the stone tools which they had made were very blunt. They were not sharp. Okay, they were very blunt. So these stone tools were used in and around 6 lakh years ago. That is from 6 lakh years ago to 1.5 lakh years ago. That is in BCs, if we are speaking. So this is the time period of early Paleolithic age. In the middle Paleolithic age, okay, almost in the upper Paleolithic age, we see the Meso, that is middle and as well as the Neolithic period, and we'll observe. The Mesolithic will actually start here in and around 12,000 BC itself. Okay, so we'll see what actually happened in middle. In the middle Paleolithic age, so we'll see first in the early or the lower Paleolithic age, the tools were hand axe, cleaver, chopper. Why were these tools used? They were used for digging, skinning of animals, or chopping. Okay, if you had to chop the meat, right? So for these, basic purposes of living, these were the tools in the Paleolithic period which were used for these purposes. There were 3 stages in them. The first is early or lower. The second is middle. The third one is upper. You have to remember that this was the longest spell. The longest time is the upper part, from 6 lakh to 1.5 lakh years ago, right? So it almost covered some 4 lakh years in between. So almost this had sprung in a longer duration of time. And in the middle part, okay, when you consider this was around 1.5 lakh to 35,000 years ago. Okay, 35,000 years ago. So can you give me an example? So when did the first Homo sapiens species was found? How many years ago? How many years ago? 1,15,000 years ago. So in the middle Paleolithic period, do we see the Homo sapiens species? Right? Can you correlate? In the upper Paleolithic or the early Paleolithic, so what kind of a human species do we see? Homo erectus, okay? So Andropithecus, all these things, right? So these people had a smaller brain capacity. So the primitive tools, these people had started, making tools. They knew that by using stone, we can do much better things, okay? So in the upper Paleolithic, okay, in the upper Paleolithic, which is sprung between 35,000 years ago to almost 15,000 years ago, we will see the stone tools had evolved. How were these tools? So here we see the stone tools, I think I have written here. In the lower it was blades and small pieces of stones were used. Blades, point bores, scrapers. These were much evolved or much better tools when compared to these tools. When you come in Mesolithics, they were microliths. Okay, they used microstones, much sharpened tools. Mesoliths are also called as microlithic people. Okay, so Mesoliths, and this age, in multiple textbooks there are multiple ages. Some say it is from 12,000 BC to 9,000 BC, and when you compare it, when it actually started, you can call it in a broader sense of term. Okay, that is around 15,000 to 9,000 BC, Mesolithic period. So in where do we see this Mesolithic, evidences in India? So you can see the evidences in Kashmir, Pakistan, the Thar Desert, Nivasa in Maharashtra, and the Nagarjuna Konda, Andhra Pradesh, and Bhimbetka caves of Madhya Pradesh. So where are Bhimbetka caves? Remember this, where are Bhimbetka caves? Madhya Pradesh. So here we also see the art part. The first Paleolithic and the Mesolithic art, what do we call? the primitive art of people. So what did this art consist of? We'll talk about it later. And we'll also discuss, the settled areas of the later Mesolithic period. We also see the settlements in Narmada, Krishna, Tungabhadra region. What actually was Paleolithic period and what was in the Mesolithic? What was the change? It was just the change of tool, stone tool. How blunt was the tool or how sharp was the tool? If the stone size was bigger, if the stone was sharper, and what were the different types of tools that we had, and what were the ages that they belonged to. Okay, the number of years, the better number of, the closer the number of years that we see from today, the better the technology had gotten. Okay, so and we also see that the improvement in the tools used, okay, the betterment of the tools that they had used. And we see that the sites of mesoliths, that is around 5000 BC in India, the evidences that we get of mesolith settlements belong to around 5000 BC as well. Okay, so in India actually, if you see the evolution of dates, right, you see that in rest of the world it had occurred much earlier. The evidences that you get in India are much later. So in around, if in other countries, if they had already begun the Neolithic period, the difference, in the Neolithic they had to already grow the crops. These people were still in Mesolithic. So the difference is much apparent between two countries, two places or two states. Okay, the evidences, the availability of evidences also makes a role here. So in and around 5000 BC, we get the microlith tools in and around the sites, and those places, Mesolithic places, are Bagor in Rajasthan and Adamgarh of Madhya Pradesh. And we also see the domestication of animals in Mesolithic period. One particular change from Paleolithic to Mesolithic is domestication. You had a doubt? Exactly. So at the end of the Mesolithic, so no, it actually grew in Neolithic. So domestication, that is stock breeding. So if you were growing it in, domesticating in one particular place, so that this actually continued and got its fore in Neolithic. But this is also, do not forget that this also actually happened in Mesolithic. That is end of Mesolithic. So these are the sites wherein we see the evidences of domestication of animals and even the evidences for Mesolithic settlements in India. Bagor in Rajasthan, Adamgarh in Madhya Pradesh. Okay. So what you have to remember is that Paleolithic settlements, if you are asked a question in prelims, you should know that Paleolithic age belonged roughly to this period, and the evidences were seen in the present day Kashmir only two particular places. We will discuss in next chapter, particularly with the map. Okay, so Kashmir, Pakistan, the Thar desert of Rajasthan, Nevasa of Maharashtra, and Nagarjunakonda of Andhra Pradesh, and the Bhimbetka of Madhya Pradesh. So here we find the Paleolithic settlements. When it comes to Neolithic, we have much better places and namings done. So in the Paleolithic, remember these names. And in the Mesolithic, remember these places. Bagor in Rajasthan, Adamgarh of Madhya Pradesh. Nenpirata? Okay. So domestication skip madbedi. Then coming to art. Okay. How were the primitive art? And why did these people have this motto of painting? Some say art is for the sake of art. Why do we paint? Some say there are different reasons. Okay, art is for the sake of art, and some say actual logical reason, if you had to think about, these people were basically hunters. And the basic reason that they had to, dominate over the animal spirits. They considered that if we only kill them and if we get better in hunting practices, only then we will be able to continue our generations. So this was somewhere running in their head, maybe. And they had to paint it or keep it in a way that how it is hunted, how the practices were. So these were depicted in Bhimbetka. So one of the places where in India we see the evidences of this Paleolithic as well as Mesolithic age. Okay, so E one evidence na Bhimbetka around in and around some 500, that series of painting is done. So what does this painting comprise of? It comprises of the clash or clan war or killing the animal, the scene, war hunting scenes, and also there is flying bird scenes. There is nowhere that a bird which is perching on the tree branch is it's not shown. What does this evidently notify? What does this show? There is no picture wherein a bird is perching on the branch. What does this show? They were not agriculturists. Andre, they were not growing anything. A perching bird will always feed on what is grown, cereals, right? So if there were no sitting bird which is shown in the painting, which means that these people did not even had started farming, growing. Okay, wild birds sit on the branch very rarely. Most of the sparrows, pigeons, they often sit more, right? This is the difference that you can observe even in the art of the Paleolithic and Mesolithic period compared to the Neolithic period. Neolithic period, people, they were agriculturists. They used to grow, they used to farm, they used to produce their own food. Even in Neolithic period, we see there is change from one part of the period to other part. We will discuss